This conference will now be recorded.
Hi guys, this is Professor Olson taking a look at your identity packages one more time on Friday. And Professor Kira will be joining us shortly. She's just a little behind schedule, but she'll be here for section 2. Starting with Alton. All right, Kuko's chips. I liked your logo development. I think your logo came out well. Right away, what jumps out at me is black. You can't use black for envelopes. You couldn't print white type on an envelope on a laser printer. If you really wanted a black envelope, you'd have to put a big white sticker there to show the address. But I don't think black really matches your brand. You've got some other colors that are working well, and the shoreline element, which I kind of like. It's a little hard to see. Um, so consider another color. It's a little hard to read type when it goes over to contrasting colors like this. So create some clear space for your type, and then you can add that element. Your logo does sort of jump out on black. I understand why you're doing that. But just think about your brand. And also from a practical standpoint, you can't have a black envelope. Your letter could be a little more crafted, and maybe the shoreline sort of comes across the bottom or something. But you're doing well. It's in good shape. So keep going. All right, Kriya, shaman tea, and you've developed this female figure. I wish the type was a little bigger. It's a little hard to read. The icon's quite large. Now, just for everybody's benefit, as I talked about in the lecture on week 2, your logo should be sort of configured like this. Icon, logo type, and you get brand, and then your categories, like for instance, Kuko's, chips. So consider how you set that up and make sure your type is legible. The icon's a little large compared to the type for me, and T could be on a second line smaller if you wanted. Overall color palette seems to be working. You change the background, which is nice. Maybe instead of being quite so monochromatic, you could add something else. Yellow, perhaps. Put a cream color, slight yellow background paper, maybe, to give it more branding for this, because right now you just got the logo and some color, but it's a good start, but keep going. All right, Jennifer. So this is Maritime Soap. Your type is totally illegible. If you look at this setup, make sure you've got about this proportion. If you look at your Full Sail logo, it's the same type of deal. So consider that so you can see your type. In terms of secondary elements, you've got this green and then you're added a blue. There's a slight tint back here. This is untouched. It needs to be stylized. Your logo needs to be stronger, and you need to have secondary graphic elements or something, texture, to sort of bring it out. Putting borders on business cards is it's kind of not really branding. Borders don't look great on business cards either because they get cut unevenly sometimes and the border looks crooked. So consider other ways you could express the Maritime Soap brand. All right, next up, Travis, Thor's Coffee. So it's a little hard to tell what your icon is. Yeah, this is pretty complex, but maybe works. You've got the good proportions. Maybe Thor's could be on its own line and then coffee smaller on a second line. The rest of these elements sort of feel untouched. You put the logo in and that's it. So, and I don't know why this is cropping so tight to the type. It's something a way you exported it or brought it in. Consider other graphic elements. What would be the border here? What would be the colors here? So add some of those. Madeline. All right, so this is Granny's Secret. All right, so your logo consists of black. You've got this purple and some brown. Your logo hasn't really come together. It needs some more stylized, a little more elements to sort of give us a clue. not black. Consider other colors. All this stuff sort of has a very dark feeling right now. Putting a swath of triangle in the corner doesn't constitute a sort of branded graphic. So if you think of grannies and all the things that you're trying to convey about this brand, something other than a triangle perhaps, the text on your letter doesn't look right because you've just repeated the same word. You can do fill with placeholder text, or you could find an actual letter and put that on there. But this has some work to do. These colors go together with pretty limited palette, but you need to have more of a stylized look for everything. Next up, Hillary. Oh, that's Jessica, sorry. Jessica, Bermuda T. I do like your logo, again with the triangles. So triangles aren't really, I guess the Bermuda Triangle maybe, but this is really sort of crashing into the letter. It doesn't really flow with your logo that well. Could there be additional other elements? And if you had a triangle, maybe it's more organic looking and flowy like your icon. You need to stylize the back of the envelope as well. So I think there's more work to do. Make sure you give yourself enough margin. If you looked at those guides on the template, you'll see that there's a little more margin than that. So add that in and consider other elements. I do like what you've done with the icon. I would like to see more of that kind of style in the other elements. That would be great. All right, Shayna, Swing Set Snacks. This is a tough one. Okay, so this, it feels a little dark. This gray doesn't really work with this product. It seems very somber. If you were going to do sort of a playground kind of feeling, the colors may be a little brighter, lighter blue, darker green. This is untouched, unstylized. You just put the logo. You can add a color to the envelope as long as it's light enough to show dark type. And you could add other elements. Your logo lockup kind of doesn't work with this kind of setup that I've recommended. So it makes it a little difficult to work with because even here, when it's a little smaller, you can't even read the type. So consider how you do that and what other elements you might add to this. You can even add postal paper colors. Dominic, Cactus Cookies, there he is. Your type, as I pointed out earlier, is illegible. If you want to have that fancy font, it's going to have to be a lot bigger in proportion to the icon. Also, the shape of your icon and the type is not really working together well. So consider that. Maybe not black for the type. More color usage. Is there a paper color? Are there graphic elements that you want to add? Don't leave these gray, default gray. That doesn't work with your brand. So consider what other design elements you might add to this, including paper texture and all the things I talked about in the lecture. Christopher, all right, this is Shanghai Cookies. Again, you're having issues with like a lockup a little bit. This type, probably Shanghai could be big, cookies smaller, tied into your icon a little better. Color's good. Having to put white behind it is a problem. So you want to figure out how not to do that, because I think it's kind of okay here, but maybe there's a slight tint or something in the background. Just don't leave it all just straight white. Black type would probably show up on this. It's pretty strong color, but it does feel distinctive for this brand. All right, Hillary, Tortuga Jelly Beans. All right, so your logo has the same issue. First of all, it feels like an illustration overall with some type in there. You want to have a simple icon and some logo type. Tortuga may be big, Jelly Beans small. And then use a little bit of color in all these elements and some other additional graphic elements to make them work together. Right now, your logo is so arduous, hard to work with, that's sort of dominating your efforts here. But as I've said before, do it like this. Small icon, big type, and keep it simple. Color palette is a little overall dark. You've got this one splash of straight up white. You want to think about the value differences of your palette. Don't make them all dark or all light. And that is all I have for section 1. Let's see, so this is Professor Kira's class. I'm expecting her any moment. I'm going to pause the recording while I wait for her.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we're back and Professor Kira has joined us. We're looking at Cassidy's work first. Go ahead, Kira.
Hi. Well, I love that the words are here, and there's different colors and fonts associated with each words to help us out. I'm definitely not a morning person. I'm definitely not awake in the morning or feeling very stimulated. So these are all very, again, serious and warm colors here for Brainiac coffee. I don't know, maybe I need to drink some Brainiac coffee to feel this way. But looks like we've got some coffee cups that we're looking top down, and those are also some nerdy glasses. So
Right.
we've got kind of like a aqua teal color with some red.
Yeah, I think the aqua teal color is the assigned color.
Okay.
So the red's a good contrast with that. I'd just say the logo type, this font is kind of a fun, crazy font. It kind of annoys me because I'm into typography and its spacing is all wacky. So I sort of understand, I get the joke, but I would say maybe just put Brainiac in that font and use a regular font for coffee.
Yeah, you get a ligature on the F, which on coffee there, which might be a little bit difficult on legibility there. But you know, the spacing, I think it mimics how you have like a really small C and then a really long stretched out C. So I get the reasoning behind it. I also think in the previous video, I can't remember if you had a gradient on your background or not, but if you did, the stripe that you have there now, I think that solves the issue nicely. The coffee beans, there's a little bit of vibration going on there. A darker coffee bean, I think, would help sort of the tonal value of the maroon color that you have. And then the gradient on the card with the maroon is a little difficult to read, but overall, I think this is a pretty clean mock-up.
Yeah, it's kind of working. Now, you haven't used the Photoshop mock-up yet, so be sure you use that for your final. And you don't have an envelope yet. Oh, there's your envelope. Yeah, so use the mock-up, because one of the things the mock-up does is sort of gives you a feel for the overall look and how everything's tying in together. All right, next up, Daisy. McFeeney's Irish Snacks. These are sort of Irish American, Southern Irish American cheese straws. And
Yum.
there's your color palette. So the green and gold of the Irish flag, black, which is not permitted for this assignment. And if we watch the live session, I made a big deal about no black or white. So find another color.
I see the orange is kind of a nice cheese whiz sort of color. Instead of a black, a brown might be nice, sort of like a you know, dark chocolate brown could work really well there instead.
Yeah, toasted bread or something. Yeah. And you're submitting screenshots, so just realize from InDesign you can export JPEGs as well as PDFs and submit those. It's a little cleaner. And there's your mock-up. So I would say the logo, you know, if you're gonna do this hat, it needs some craftsmanship, a little cleanup. It's kind of rough around the edges, or if you're gonna give it some sort of rough style, it's not quite there yet. And your type is minuscule. Like, as I've said earlier, consider icon, logo type this size, cheese sticks or snacks or something would be go under there. So you do have a long name, so give yourself an advantage in terms of breaking the line, giving a hierarchy. You do have some good colors to work with. These borders, the guides here sort of indicate the bleed, trim, and safety. And I would never, in practice, put a border on a business card because when it gets trimmed, it tends to be uneven and look weird. I would consider other ways to brand the card. This yellow, this setup works well. I wish the type was in a color instead of black, and configured the way I just showed you. So I think you have some elements of success here. Brewing, cooking. What do you think, Yura?
Well, you know, I see the Irish, but I don't see the cheese or the snacks. So this could be, you know, it could be St. Patrick's Day. It could be really anything. So
Yeah.
one of the things I would like to see pushed a little bit more is the specifications of what this is. So that's
Yeah.
one thing that I would think out a little bit more is how can you specifically be snacky or cheesy?
Yeah, I mean, like if you flip the hat upside down and had cheese straws sticking out of it, you know, I mean, that's a down and dirty, fast way to, because right now this hat is just very generic in terms of sort of Irish symbolism.
Yeah, or if the instead of the buckle, it was a you know, a big old chunk of Swiss cheese or something.
Or Irish cheddar, right?
Even better.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's move on. Sir Duncan. All right, Chunk Soap. This is Manly Soap. I'll just say right off, the envelope's too dark. It needs to be able to show black type on it because people print in a laser printer and black type. And your color palette is extraordinarily limited. You've got blue and a light blue and a brown. I would say, could you add additional graphic elements, things to tie in besides just a border? And your logo seems to be configured two different ways here. So again, consider how you would set it up like more like this. So
Yeah, on the business card, it's not even like the chunk soap is not centered the way it is on the letterhead.
yeah,
So that's just something to be aware of. I don't know if that was on purpose. And then on the other one, it says your name, so that looks incomplete. But which was the given color for this? I don't
it was a
remember.
blue. It's more like this blue
Okay.
up here, which
Okay.
doesn't, I don't think that appears down here anywhere.
Okay, because yeah, I was gonna say that's a good color because it's got that authoritative navy blue, and the brown is nice. It's got kind of like an earthy, muddy, like you're saying,
Yeah,
deliberately rustic brown. But yeah, the letterhead, it looks a little sparse, and having the mountains up at the top, it's really heavily weighted up at the top, and there's not a lot at the bottom. And mountains are so they're so stable, but what you have there is kind of like, you know, your proverbial grand piano hanging by a
yeah,
string, and there's all this, you
yeah,
know, like gravity is just kind of pulling, so it feels very unstable. So you could think about how you can stabilize that letterhead so it feels a bit more grounded, especially given what your logo is.
right. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, Hannah, Osiris Coffee. This is the coffee that wakes you from the dead. You have an interesting icon. It's a little hard to see. Zoom in more. Your type needs to be much larger. Just think of the icon as a little flag to wave you down and say, read this type. It's also, you're changing the lockup in different places. You're using a word mark in places, and your font isn't particularly distinctive, so the word by itself doesn't work well. And I even explicitly said in the lecture, I'm pretty sure, don't put your icon reduced opacity in the middle of the letterhead. This letterhead
Well,
is
you even
way
talked
too
about,
dark.
yeah, you even talked about gradients too in the
Yeah,
letterhead.
gradients aren't a great choice for a letterhead. Uh, Typically, just think of it as a frame for the letter. And right now you just have a huge amount of dummy copy and it doesn't really look like a letter. Maybe the back, you just use the icon. That would be a place to just use the icon. But your logo lockup with the logo, the icon and the logo type needs to get established, and then you can use it there and use it there and use it there.
I am not a fan of the texture around it. I don't think you need it. And I'm also thinking about situations where it would be really difficult to duplicate that. Like I'm thinking about my chiropractor having his logo on the rugs on the front door and how that would be really difficult. Or I'm thinking about stitching the logo onto a polo shirt
Yeah.
and like faxing the logo over or putting the logo on a lanyard or that sort of thing. How there's lots of situations where it's going to be really difficult to translate that texture. And honestly, I don't even think you need it. One thing I would think about is you're stylizing the symbol of Osiris, but it's still just kind of the symbol of Osiris. Where's the coffee part? So you could think about how maybe you could think about if you could combine the symbol of Osiris with a coffee bean. It's kind of similar to the shape of a coffee
Ah,
bean, or a mug or something like that, like like how they do the art in the froth, or I don't know, something like that. But how can you make it uniquely combining Egyptian mythology and coffee culture? So that's something to think about.
yeah, that's the fun part actually. But
Yeah, I do like that, the color of the envelope though. That's kind of a nice
yeah, that's interesting.
beigey khaki.
I think this is meant to be like a coffee ring, I'm
Yeah, I
guessing.
get it.
Yeah.
I think it's too much detail that's unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. Daniel, Olympic coffee. All right, this has sort of a powerful impact right away. Black and yellow tend to be sort of like a warning color, like a warning combination. Um, Being that this is color theory, just right off the bat, I would love for this to come away from dead black and be something maybe dark coffee colored or add a
Mm.
purple tint to it or something just to give it some more life because it feels very severe right now. Now, I should start off by saying the overall design is very good. You've concluded all the elements, you've added branded pieces to all the parts. This is what we're looking for. Your logo type could be a lot larger. You see in this letterhead, it's like invincible. So consider that. This configuration maybe works a little better in that place. So, but yeah, you're doing well. You've got good solid ground. Now's the time to experiment a little.
Yeah, I appreciate how graphical and how cohesive and like there's good repetition with this overall design, and it's definitely, like you said, bold. He's doing a good job of accomplishing that with the letterhead in particular, that groundedness that was difficult with the one of the previous designs. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think yeah, brown instead of a black might be a good solution.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to change a lot in this. Just I would take the time that you have left to experiment with colors and see maybe there's an additional color, maybe not, but maybe the black becomes something else.
Yeah, maybe like a really bold red, really passionate red.
Yeah, could work. Good job, basically. Good job. Look, he's even got atmospheric perspective here with the tone down.
Mm-hmm.
See, now this would work like if you I have a picture like the Maxfield Parrish kind of purple
Mm.
there, and maybe your mountains have a little more dimension to them. Some of the highlights could be a different color, like an orange or something, like this orange.
To get some of
Ah,
the like warmer tones to bring the mountains forward and the cooler tones to push them
right.
back.
Yeah, see, this is one of those things where I look at this and I like, oh, I want to do that. I want to play with this one. So, all right, good. All right, that is all we have for today. Hopefully everyone got a critique.
Awesome.
Uh, thank you, Professor Kira. I'm going to end the
Yeah.
recording.